new session is on education, and it's about role of innovation in government initiatives in education. And we, in this session also, will have various different perspectives. As for instance, a perspective of a bank by ICICI Bank, how ICICI Bank is facilitating such innovations in education. And then we'll have government perspective by various secretaries. And this way, we are moving towards a very interesting session now, role of innovation in government initiatives in education. And for this, we have our guest from Odisha, who is our session chair for this session. I invite him on stage. I invite Dr. C.S. Kumar, Secretary, Department of Employment and Technical Education and Training, Government of Odisha, to please join us on stage. We have Mr. S. Chokalingam with us. He is Education Commissioner, Government of Maharashtra. Sir, we invite you on stage. Mr. Chokalingam has so many innovative ideas with him, especially in terms of school education. And we hope that we'll get to know some of them here. I request my team to please inform Sir Mr. Chokalingam to attend this session. Talking about a bank's perspective, we have with us Deputy General Manager, ICICI Bank Limited, Mumbai, Mr. Sunil Mehta, to join us on stage. Please invite him with a round of applause, please. And I guess Ma'am Ritu Maheshwari has reached. So I ask my team to please confirm it. And now we have Mr. Naufal with us. He is Executive Director, IT at School, Government of Kerala. I request Sir to please join us on stage. A round of applause for Sir. He has supported us a lot. And we also have with us Dr. R.N. Behra. He is Senior Technical Director at National Informatics Center, NIC. I request Sir to please join us on stage.
I extend my hearty greetings and sincere gratitudes to the organizers of E-India for organizing this conference in Trivandrum and inviting all of us here to participate in this summit. Attending these conferences for last so on many occasions, particularly I have attended, this is my third occasion I am attending, and it has been quite a enriching and quite a learning experience. It's a good platform to share our experience, to learn, and try to replicate some good models there, or try to do something new, implement some innovative ideas in whatever field it is. So I am particularly working in education sector for last 4 years, and we have done a bit quite and trying to do more in the education sector to help the various stakeholders. Before I really go, I must welcome all my esteemed colleagues on the dais, Mr. Chokalingam, Sri Sunil Mehta, who is DGM ICICI Bank, Mumbai, Sri KP Naufal, Executive Director IT at School, and Dr. Behra, who is working with me he is a Senior Executive from NIC. So, but I will take 2 minutes, see what are the main challenges in education which we are facing, particularly which we are facing for last 3-4 years. See, education is one field where there are multi-stakeholders, and so each stakeholder have their own expectations, they have their own aspirations. Particularly the students are at the center, and then teachers, then parents, and the education administrator. So whatever we do, we must, whatever application we develop or whatever initiative we take, this must address the concerns of all these, at least these 4 stakeholders: students, teachers, education administrators, and the parents, and then of course the civil society and the country at large. So, lot of innovative ideas have been implemented, and this is an occasion we would like to hear more from our panelists before I really go on something. So I will invite Sri Sunil Mehta, DGM ICICI Bank, to give his valuable talks. Thank you.
Before we start with this presentation, how could I forgot a very important company, TRS Forms, who are doing a lot of innovations in the sector of education. So I would like to invite Mr. Sarang Gangan, VP, Vice President of TRS Forms, on stage. A round of applause for Mr. Gangan, please. Sir, please join us. Ma'am Ritu Maheshwari from Skill Development Department, Government of Uttar Pradesh, she is joining us shortly. She is at the venue itself, but she is joining us in some minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you once again for having me here. Unfortunately, our presentation got mixed up, so it's not opening right now. But what is ICICI Bank doing in education? The same thing that I had mentioned earlier about government, what we are doing in education is trying to do customized solutions for the education sector. So normally what happens in the education sector, the basic requirement that comes up is for a payment gateway. Most of the education institutions have their own website, and they want a payment gateway to be installed on their website so that they can collect the fees online. However, what we have done with a specific university, the SRM University in Chennai, was they wanted to develop a bigger software wherein they could not only capture the payment which is being made by the person, but also multiple details that they wanted. So what we have done for them is primarily, so when a person goes to a website of the SRM University, he chooses the course, the campus, multiple things, and then he chooses the fees also. So when the payment comes to ICICI Bank, we not only capture the payment details, we also capture most of these other details also with us, and then appropriately provide that back to the SRM University. How that helps is, SRM has a hierarchical structure. So for example, a program department wants to see which of my program these students have taken. Maybe at an institute level, there will be multiple programs. At multiple institutes, some director is sitting and he wants to see what is happening for each of my institutes. So we provide hierarchical access to each of these people, so they can see how much fees has been paid, how many students have been enrolled, and all that kind of information. So that has helped SRM is to ensure that they capture all the details, but they show only that much detail which is necessary for that person. So for example, a person at level 1 can see the details required by that person. A senior will be able to see all people under him. So this way, SRM has been able to capture multiple information with that same one payment gateway. So while a normal payment gateway captures the payment details, this payment gateway also provides them the additional information. And this has helped them to do their entire reconciliation in a very fast manner. So this is just one opportunity that we captured in the education sector. Plus, on the education capturing, for example, now lot of colleges and schools want to go online and they want to say that, boss, I want my parents to be able to pay the fees online. So we are also developing a solution where people can come onto our ICICIbank.com, choose the college that they want to make a fee payment, capture the details that they want to pay and make a payment. So that way, a lot of these things, so for example, today all of us are quite used to paying utility bills on the online, but fees we still pay physically. This will ensure that more and more people may start making their payments for school payment fees, for colleges fees, also online. So this is one of the small initiatives that we have done for the education sector so that they can onboard the technology platform. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I will invite Sri Chokalingam. He is Commissioner Education, Maharashtra Government, to share his idea.
Innovations can come just by questioning why are we doing what we are doing today. This post has been created newly in the state of Maharashtra. The basic questions I asked was that why should a student apply for sitting for an exam? Every student has to fill in an application that I want to sit in 10th standard exam, 12th standard exam. Do we have any student who doesn't want to appear for exam in 10th and 12th but studying in 10th and 12th? Why some student has to apply for a scholarship if he or she is found to be eligible? Can't we find out eligible students? Innovations come from questioning things. So what we are planning, which some other states are also planning and central government is planning by way of Shala Darpan, is to have a database of students, big data of schools, teacher and students. Schools and teachers are available in UDAS database and student is being planned. What are the benefits? The educational growth, the tracking of child of each and every student can be done. Whether a particular sector, territory, maybe gender, maybe some other thing is lacking in a particular topic. Is it true or not true? What are the help we have to put it? Second, as I told, if the government want to introduce some scheme, maybe scholarship, maybe some other support, what will be the impact in finances? And immediately we can pick up the beneficiaries and give. How many children are there with special needs? What are the things to be provided? Deduplication. All the states face this big problem of vanishing students. May not be vanishing schools, but vanishing students. We had a case where the school exists, same management had 3 schools, but in 2 schools no student appeared for 10th standard exam. Then on inquiry it was found that the same 150 students in a school is being shown in other 2 schools, but no one sits for 10th standard exam because exam take place at the same date and time. The another issue is that we have a huge mechanism of issuing mark sheets, attesting it, submitting to 100 places. Can't we have an academic repository where we will put all our data and they will quote only number? This also we are planning. As far as academic side is concerned, I only request all of you to go, you might have listened to Sugata Mitra, but please go through his TED talk, which $1 million award in the last year. You might be knowing him for the experiment Hole in the Wall. Now he has come out with the concept of school in the cloud. What he says is that you cannot make the people learn. They have the capacity to learn themselves. For example, our children are much ahead of us, much ahead of our teachers in learning new things. They teach us how to use the new equipments. So his concept is that please challenge them to learn, just to provide the things. You don't have the capacity to teach them. Maybe this is time for us just to make things available and leave it to the children to learn. There is one more concept he has put, worth looking forward. He says that maybe education will be obsolete because whatever you need to know will be available in front of you at that particular point of time. You have to make a plumbing job, it will appear in front of you, take the spanner, turn it right, and it will be working. So what he is telling that maybe the current educational system is totally obsolete, the current school system is totally obsolete. A time may come, like the magazines are dying today, except few magazines. A time may come when only few universities and few schools in the world will exist, and they will run through MOOCs, massive open online courses. We should be ready for that challenge. As government, are we ready for the fact that most of the schools and universities will be closed down? It might very well happen. This is what the recent economist review says. These are the challenges before us. Maybe we look forward to more interaction during the conference. Thank you.
Okay, next I invite.
A very good evening to all of you. Thanks to the organizers for inviting me to this such a fantastic event here. I represent ITIT School, Government of Kerala. I don't know whether my this presentation works this time because it's too late. I believe so. Anyway, let me start with ITIT School. ITIT School is a renowned word, especially in Kerala, since 2000. It's the name of a project started in the year 2000 for empowering the ICT education in the school, especially the State School of Kerala. We have around 12,500 plus schools across the state. The government of Kerala decided IT as a compulsory subject in the year 2000. As part of the same, government of Kerala initiated the project ITIT School as a technology arm for the general education department. You can see that IT as a subject for standard 8 to 10 from the beginning of the project. We have IT textbook for all the classes. We are conducting IT examinations from 8 to 9, 8 to 10 standard. Even we are conducting practical examinations. We believe that the first ever software-based IT examination for high school was initiated by ITIT School project of Kerala. We are believing that this is the first of its kind implementation in India. The main objective of ITIT School project is to provide necessary hardware support for the entire schools in the state. We are identifying the number of computers required, the number of projectors required. All ICT equipments we are conducting and auditing, and we are proposing the government to facilitate the same in all the schools, especially in the rural area. So ITIT School playing a vital role in the IT education of the government of Kerala. The human resource architecture of ITIT School is very marvelous. Why I am saying so is we have 14 district coordinators exclusively for this purpose. And I can tell you all these 14 members are selected from the teacher community. We trained them and now they are taking care the IT activities of their concerned district. Under each, as you know, we have 14 districts. Each district is having around at least 10 master trainers. They are giving IT trainers to all the teachers. And each and every schools, we are having an IT coordinator in the school. All these officers are reporting to the executive director of the ITIT school. So in the grassroots level, we are getting the clear-cut information for the requirements as and when required. Now we are on the way of so many versatile projects. One among them is digital collaborative textbook. We are providing a facility for the world to contribute contents to our textbook. After vetting, we are integrating all these contents to the textbook. This may be the first of its kind in India. And you may know we are leading the free software initiatives in the state. And we have free and open learning web portal. Students can do their learnings through these web portals. We have so many animated contents which can be uploaded by students as well as teachers. So we have facilitated for anyone, anytime, anywhere, learning is provided by ITIT school. ITIT school also provided broadband connectivity to all the schools as well as the educational offices such as DD and DE office of the state. And now we are planning to provide at least 10 Mbps internet connectivity to all the schools in the state. Very importantly, I can tell you, we have an in-house development team which comprising of 20 programmers, which majority of them are also taken up from the teacher community. And so far we have developed more than 80 plus software, and which are mainly on open source. These softwares are driving the IT education in Kerala. The software, namely Sampurna, which collect the 3.7 million of students' records, and UID, PEEPs, non-meal, staff fixation, even transfer and posting, school, sports, arts, Kalolsav, everything are under the administrative control of ITIT school, and we provide marvelous support to the to the general education department for conducting various activities for the e-governance part also. There is a dedicated channel for education that is called Victors. It's an educational channel, complete educational channel. It runs 17 hours a day. It is exclusively for education. We are conducting educational videos for entrance, special exam-oriented programs. For outside viewers, we have victors.itschool.gov.in for live streaming. And we are even conducting live tele programs for teachers, parents, and even for students. We are conducting live phone-in programs. So this Victors runs on EduSat. And for government support, ITIT school providing support for developing various software, just like planning, budgeting, monitoring, etc. We are supporting in that way also. For administrative departments, as and when they require, we are conducting video conference facility for all the 14 districts, even to the taluk level. And so many online softwares are being under the administrative control of, runs under the administrative control of ITIT school for the e-governance activity of the government of Kerala. Lot of student-centric activities are running under the ITIT school project, that is IT Mela, School Wiki, IT Club, animation, training. We have given training to more than lakhs of students in animation, even in web designing and hardware clinics, everything under the administrative control of ITIT school. Now we have initiated so many other projects.
I will request Sri Nofal to be brief because we have 2 witnesses. So just another 2 minutes, if please.
Only 1 minute?
Another 2 minutes. Please.
Yeah, surely. So we have so many projects ongoing. To cut short, it's a web portal for ITIT school and multimedia classroom, Wi-Fi campus, smart classroom, etc. as an extension of government decision, government decided to extend all these IT activities to higher secondary school also. And we are planning to set up 30 hardware solution centers and a virtual connect center also we are planning. So all these activities are being under the control of IT at school. So may I conclude with the one word that IT at school is doing a fantastic support to the general education department in terms of education, in terms of administration, in terms of e-governance, etc. and etc. Thank you so much.
To the next speaker, with the permission by Session Chair, I would like to announce that at 7:15 we will start with the dinner. 7:15, and the World Bank's workshop on open government data will be on in Hall 2 after this session. So now I hand over the session back to sir, please.
So, TRS to please present your views.
Yeah. So just to quickly introduce TRS, we have been a technology solution provider in education space for last 20 years. We have pioneered a lot of solutions, and as Karthik was very kind to use the word innovative technology solution provider in this space. So I had an opportunity to present a solution to the education forum in the afternoon. A solution that empowers the examination process, and now I'm going to talk about another solution which addresses one other problem that the education segment faces, which is the problem of the fake documents. We have a lot of issue in terms of the documents getting counterfeited. It's not a problem related to education only, but education is probably the biggest affected segment of this issue, where you have the degree certificates, mark sheet, transcripts, all sort of documents getting counterfeited, either getting tampered or complete fake documents coming for getting certain benefits. And the problem goes beyond education in terms of the even job offer letters or ID proofs and all these kind of things. There are reports that suggest that 1 in every 10 document could be fake. So that's the magnanimity of the problem. And this is something which affects everybody, all parts of country. Maybe the magnitude of it may be different, but even developed countries like US and European countries, and these kind of news are very common. Every other day in our newspapers we see these kind of news. It happens all parts of country, so it's something very, very common that is there. So at TRS it is a constant endeavor to find out these technology solutions for the problems that are facing the education segment. And for that we have taken a systemic approach to this particular problem of counterfeiting of document to understand why it happens and how we can probably offer a solution for this. So the problem basically has two levels, we can say. One is the generation level, where the counterfeiting happens, and the counterfeiting can happen very easily because the current system that we follow, the documents that are created, it's basically created with some visual security proofs, as we call it. It's basically a special paper, maybe a thick paper, a heavier paper, about say 200 GSM paper that will be used for a degree certificate, which will carry some security proofs like a hologram or a watermark or threads or foils, which are all visual security proofs that can easily be identified by anybody, and then it becomes easy to recreate it. And there are enormous amount of companies or players which are available which can create these kind of documents. So there is an organized racket running behind it. There is a lot of incentive. People are ready to pay for such documents. So it makes the whole process very easy to crack. And at the other level, at the verification level, the verification is completely offline. So it takes a lot of time to verify the documents. So if the document is counterfeited, the chance of catching it, either it's, it is never caught because of the offline process, which is too slow, or it is caught after a long time, after many months, it is caught that somebody got a job using a fake certificate. By then it's probably too late. So end of it, what really happens is the credibility of a institution is affected, and in some cases the institution may not even, there may not be a linkage of that racket to the institute at all. It is completely an outside racket which is happening, but definitely it affects the credibility of the institution. There have been various solutions that have been tried and are being talked about. Some of it happened in India, some of it happened globally, because the problem is a common problem across globe. So there are various solutions like repositories or e-transcript, electronic data exchanges, cloud-based solution. All these have been tried, but they seem to have not been working, at least so far, for various reasons. Like it is we have quite a big segment, a huge number of students across 600 plus universities and 40 plus boards. So there is a lot of logistics, and the data of the institute or the students is also constantly getting updated in terms of there may be reevaluation or there may be mistakes in generating the data in the first place. So the data always constantly get through a process of updation. So what really happens is then, it becomes logistically difficult to maintain a database and enable the verification of that. Then there are other solutions that are tried where the database is put online and the verification can be enabled online, but then it has inherent risk of the data being hacked or manipulated by people. The entry barrier is high. There is a huge implementation cost. There is a lot of upfront investment which is required in creating this kind of infrastructure. And also this is a very sensitive data which right now is in the control of a university or a board, which probably they would not like to share. So these are some of the reasons that these solutions that are currently being tried have not really worked very effectively. Now, looking at this, when we tried figuring out a right solution for this, we thought, let's first understand what is that framework, what are the things that an ideal solution should have. So definitely, two of the most basic things, yes, it should be a solution that is completely tamper-proof. So at the generation level, you address the issue that you are creating a degree certificate now which nobody else can create other than you. And on the second level, as I said, the verification is the other problem. So it should be a solution that can instantly give a verification option. The verification can be done in real time. And other things preferably that the solution should have, it should not touch any database to enable the verification process. So there should not be any database connectivity. Ideally, there should not be any third-party involvement, so the university or the school board can directly give a verification from their website. And preferably, yes, this is how a university or a board approaches it, that it should be done without changing their current system. So they are probably following a particular type of a stationery or a printing or a hardware setup, so that should not be touched. So keeping that in mind, we have developed a solution which is a security mark which sits inside a container, which could be like a QR code or a 2D barcode. It is basically an encrypted mark which brings in the dual benefits of creating, so it follows a 3-level encryption process using which it becomes a completely tamper-proof certificate. The data is stored inside that mark, so the data is basically stored on the paper itself. You don't have to put it on a centralized place. I'll be very quick and wind up. So it does not require any database connectivity, and there is no upfront investment required. So currently, like the certificates are generated, there is a per certificate cost, which is of paper and the security features. So we just go by the same model. So there is no change in that. And even the repository systems that are being talked about, this this kind of a security mark can go along with that so that the verification can happen online for the end user. So it's a very simple solution which can just stop the generation of the counterfeited documents, and it gives an instant verification. So that is all. Thank you.
I also welcome Sri Srimati friends. Let her settle down, and for 5 minutes, I will give opportunity to Dr. Behra. Basically, he is our senior executive NIC, who is helping us in Government of Odisha in developing a lot of applications, advising on software applications, particularly in employment mission, our SCVT, which looks after ITIs and polytechnics, and also engineering education, the universities. So we are trying to, almost we have done the complete automation of the system of right from enrollment till result publication in the ITIs and polytechnics, and also in the engineering college. And so we are developing registry of the students, which will capture all his academic credentials, so that no more verification will be required. Anybody, employer can go and see on the website and find it there. But today we have not much time, so I'll just ask Dr. Behra to present a small presentation on only skill mission for only 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes.
Esteemed Chair of the session, Dr. Chandrasekhar Kumar, dignitaries in the dais and of the dais. The time is very short period is given. In a nutshell, I want to explain about automation. Actually, we are going to implement a mission. Odisha government, there is two things. One is employment exchange and employment mission. But the project of government of Odisha under employment technical education and training department, and Dr. Chandrasekhar Kumar being the secretary, he is the guiding force, and with his able leadership, it is a very successful project in Odisha. The basic motto of this employment mission is training, placement, and putting the trained manpower in the public domain. So the state has given much initiative for skill development and training program. So our program is how the lower qualified youths, just like a Mali driver, they are captured online. They are imparted training by PIS. That is the training partners of government of Odisha. And after imparting training, they are given suitable jobs, and their payment is made online. And after this, all these accessing bodies are identified by government of Odisha. They are registered online through the system, and they make access all assessment of this trainings by the by the training partners, and finally the certificate is given. This is the entire workflow. So we have developed 3 projects: MIS for PLTP placement linked training program, the MIS for assessment of training under PLTP and OSCM, then automation and implementation that I will not touch today. So Odisha State Employment Office aims at bringing all this transparency and speedy and transparency into the system. It makes process easy, starting from candidates, PIA, project implementing agency, registration, training, and placement verification. It also saves exchequer from paying incentives to training providers for unscrupulous candidates by preventing duplicate candidates there. So what happened, the duplicate candidates we are registering, one candidate can register multiple times. This system was facilitated to check the duplicate candidate also. So the various stakeholders are Odisha State Employment Mission, Project Implementing Agency, PIS, then training centers. Under the PIS, training centers are there. Then district employment officers posted by government of Odisha in each district. And then job seeker, basically the lower qualified youths here are the job seeker. Then accessing bodies identified by government of India and also registered by government of Odisha. So this, how it helps the government? It makes government OSM the job monitoring on fingertips. Before that, it was very difficult to monitor the projects, because youths, they want to get job, but they are not getting the opportunity. If there is an advertisement paper, they are very difficult to track it. So in this open system, in this a portal is developed so that they can register online. After registering online, they can give preferences like any subject like electrician, Mali, driving. So there are different institutes also they can give, so that they will be suitable observed by the training partners, and they are imparted training in various skill development programs. And after the end, their biometric attendance also uploaded to the system. So this brings transparency into system, checks spurious and duplicate candidates. One candidate, earlier what happened, they are getting food and also shelter for this. One candidate who are taking registered in different programs. That is a duplicate candidates in a common database, duplicate candidates are checked and that can be verified and that government money is saved. So these are the various activities how they are taken. It's how it helps with training providers, PIs. PIN can register themselves online and get approved by OSM. Once they register online, they get approved by the Odisha State Employment Mission. And PI can add training programs, various training programs, training centers, they can add on. Then PI can upload, register the mobilized candidates information to the portal, counseling, batch creation, etc. They can create a batch and they can finalize the candidates, they can upload to the portal. So these are the various activities and ultimately at the end, one SMS alert goes to the candidates and also the PIs. How it helps with citizen. This is the most important thing, how it helps the citizen. Because job seeker, they are the main problem, unemployed is the main problem, and also unemployed with lack of skill development, that is a major challenge. So job seeker can get information of various training programs available and other related information from the website. Job seeker can register online by his own or can contact DO, District Employment Officer and PIA concern. Once candidate is registered online, then he gets notification through email or SMS. Then mission statistics can be verified by the job seeker, where he can track where the job, and ultimately it is connected to the job portals. They are ultimately suitably absorbed by the job providers, and they get the job. So different processes takes place. Batch creations are there, job seeker registration, all the various processes are given. So this is the front page of this. The public dashboard system is there so that any assembly question type, any RTI question from instantly how many candidates applied, how many candidates are enrolled, how many trained, all the details can be given. Then courses offered. Then this is the job seeker training provided. They can register online and can get access to the internet portal and work on this. So functional to Odisha State Employment Mission, how it all the dashboard is there, State Employment Dashboard. Total PIs 57, total training centers, all these detailed statistics can be available through this portal. Then how SMS alert is given. Then various reports, MIS reports are available, placement reports, list of PIs, list of PI centers. Then functional, then training provider dashboard is there. All the reports are available. Accessing body major thing, because there is nobody to control whatever quality of training program is given, whether any duplicate thing is given. So accessing body, they are registered online. Once a training batch is completed, the accessing body, they can capture the database online through this portal, and they can access and complete their target, whether this, there is a quality of this training or not. Now at the end, they are provided certificates. This is various forms and various reports are available.
Okay.
So this is all about. So our proposed system is that this will be extended to various other skill development training programs like tourism department, Panchayat Raj, then SC/ST and other department. So that there is a centralized database and any duplicate and spurious candidates can be verified through this system. This is all about employment exchange, and the employment exchange I don't want to say anything. This is on the process. Thank you very much. This is developed in open source technology with PGSQL and PostgreSQL and PHP and Drupal and also Enterprise DB we are working. Thank you.
So now I will invite Ritu Maheshwari, Director Uttar Pradesh Skill Development Mission, to present her presence. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ritu Maheshwari. I am Mission Director in UP Skill Development Mission. In continuation of the presentation of Odisha, it's a similar topic. We in UP are also planning to train and employ more than 25 lakh people over the next 3 years with an estimated budget of around 4,000 crores. And again, picking up from where Odisha left, and the last slide said that they are planning to converge various schemes under the particular program which is being run over there. And similarly, UP also experimented with this mission last year. This is basically the presentation structure. Coming to the backdrop of the need for skills development, India, all of us know, has a great demographic dividend window of opportunity. And if we look at the map below, there are certain areas where there is a deficit of working population, and there are certain areas where there is a surplus of working population. And in India, we enjoy a huge surplus, which can be converted into an opportunity. However, at the same time, if we see the people who are already educated or semi-educated, there is a big unemployability challenge. Even those who are educated, some of them are middle school dropouts, some of them are high school dropouts, and those who are actually able to reach up to higher education, there are quite a few. So this is another challenge. And linked to the same is the need of skilled manpower, especially for the manufacturing sector. Though India's service sector has come up in a big way, but the manufacturing sector has not grown commensurate with the growth of other sectors, and one of the basic reasons for that has been the deficiency of skilled manpower. The HR requirement has been made till 2022, and all sectors need huge manpower, and in fact huge skilled manpower. At the national level also, currently skill training, skill development is being given a lot of emphasis, and there's a plan to skill more than 500 million people by 2022. But of course, if big targets like this are set up, they need a collaboration between the state government, the central government, the training providers, and all of us. UP also, if we come specifically to the case, there's a huge skill gap in all sectors, and currently almost we are 50% behind the demand for skilled manpower, and that is why this particular mission, UP Skill Development Mission, was created as an independent structure last year in July 2013. And as I said earlier, it aims to benefit around 24 lakh youth in 3 years with the estimated cost of rupees 4,200 crore. This mission has been envisaged to integrate efforts of various departments and to set itself as a single platform where the trainings which have been for years provided by various departments, they can be converged under one head and be run in a uniform way. Secondly, not only training, the training has to be placement linked. As per our policy, minimum 60% of the students have to be placed, and 60% is the minimum, depending on the schemes on which UP Skill Development Mission, from which Skill Development Mission draws its funds. The employment criteria ranges from 60 to 75 to 80%. For all this, UPSTM was created last year, and a new body and a new structure was created. There is a state level structure and there is a district level structure. At the state level structure, we have different committees: the Governing Council, headed by the Honorable Chief Minister, State Steering Committee, State Executive Committee, and then to run the daily affairs of the mission, there is a State Project Management Unit, which is headed by the Mission Director. Similarly, at the district level, we have the district executive committees headed by the district magistrate and the district project management unit headed by the district coordinator. As I said earlier, all these schemes and what I am going to talk about has also been there earlier, but an effort to integrate all training schemes and all placement schemes under one head and to provide a uniform approach, that was something which was done for the first time in UP. And the targets which I am mentioning, 25 lakh, they are also largest for any state in the country. This is broadly the structure of our state project management unit. These are the 8 schemes which have been converged under UP Skill Development Mission. 6 of them are the Government of India schemes: the SDI scheme run by Ministry of Labour, Ajivika schemes run by Ministry of Rural Development, National Urban Livelihood Mission, again run by Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Elevation, MSTP, which is run by the Ministry of Minority Affairs, Border Area Development Program run by Home Affairs, and Special Central Assistance to SCSP. So these are the 7 central schemes. One is the state scheme, Building and Other Construction Workers schemes, and over and above these schemes, there is a State Skill Development Fund. All these schemes some of them have 100% central share, and 2 or 3 of them have 25% state share also. Apart from that, all of them have their separate criteria. But we in UP Skill Development Mission have identified certain basic cost norms. So if the cost norms for any of these 7 schemes is less than the cost norms of UPSDM, then we have a top-up fund, the State Skill Development Fund, which is used to pull in the resources of the state government to fill in the gap as and when where it is required. So it's an integrated mission, and it also envisages the standardization of courses, unified monitoring of all the schemes, IT-enabled systems, and payments which are linked to specific outcomes, that is assessment and certification. This is the typical life cycle of a training batch. Firstly, the candidates are registered, the batch is formed, batch is approved at the district level, then at the state level, then the trainings are conducted. Biometric attendance, as was being mentioned earlier, is again uploaded. After the training is completed, the assessment is requested. There are different models of assessment. After assessment is completed, result is uploaded, placement is done, and then post-placement tracking takes place up to 1 year. I'll discuss the details of these in the subsequent slides. As coming to candidate register, more than 46 lakh people of the state have already registered themselves on our portal. And now these people are being trained under various schemes as and when the funds are available. For UP, we have a target group of 14 to 35 age group, and this is basically our priority criteria, some reservation for minorities, women, SC, ST. If we have a look at this slide and the schemes which are being fed under the UP Skill Development Mission, we'll see that every category of people are being covered by our Skill Development Mission. While SDI scheme is open for all, NRLM covers only rural BPL, NULM covers only urban BPL, MSTP covers only minority population, SCA to SCP covers only scheduled caste candidates, BOCW covers only building and construction workers and their families, and BADP covers those blocks which are covered in the border area districts. So the aim is to provide the benefits of the training and placement to all categories of people. And apart from that, as I mentioned, the State Skill Development Fund, that also has been given few targets to train those people who cannot be covered under any of these 7 schemes. We have 4 modes of empanelment of training providers. One is through RFP, we empanel large training partners, with organizations with turnover more than 1 crore. Secondly, small training partners which have turnover more than 10 lakh, but we are limiting them. We have just 15 of small training partners. Thirdly, the government training partners. In UP, the Directorate of Employment and Training is separate, and UP Skill Development Mission is separate. So all courses, the ITIs, the polytechnics, and the courses which are more than 1 year duration, they are being run by Directorate of Employment and Training. And any course between 2 months to 10 months duration is being run by our UP Skill Development Mission. The basic reason for this differentiation is that Skill Development Mission was created to target those people who are maybe 5th class dropouts, 8th class dropouts, 10th class dropouts, or those who have not been able to enter formal education sector. So government training providers can also become training providers under the mission. And last but the most important is the Flexi MOU training providers. Big companies which have a turnover of more than 100 crores and which require manpower, generally they have their own training units. They generally train people before sending them into the regular work. So with these kind of companies also we are entering into MOUs so that they can also train and then employ people in their own company. We have already entered into a Flexi MOU with the Raymonds, and 7 more MOUs which I'll be showing in the subsequent slides are to be signed in another week. This is just the details of, we have around 98 training providers, small and large, and Flexi MOU partners like Cafe Coffee Day, G4S, Future, Lakshmi Kotsin, Superhouse, TNS, these kind of companies are coming in and they are targeting to train more than 60,000 people over the next 3 years in UP. And the best part of this mode of training is that there is a assured placement for the people who will be trained. Any skill development program which has been running till date, the basic basic drawback or the basic flaw which was generally left was that the placement linkages have been very slow and they have not kept pace. So maybe the Flexi MOU mode can provide a breakthrough, and these kind of industries which actually need manpower, which actually need workforce, they'll be better able to absorb them. So as I mentioned, minimum 100 crores, and they can train people either in our campus or in their own campus, and they have to establish model training centers and any courses which they want to do. There are basically three types of courses. One is the DGET approved, the NCVT approved courses. The second is the sector skill councils run QPNOS courses, and thirdly a state council also approves few courses. Then industry can also come as preferred employer, whereby those people who have been trained with us, they can absorb minimum of 100 candidates, and then they can have a link to our portal and a link and access to the people who have been trained with us. So different placement agencies are also tying up with us to absorb already trained candidates. And the third model of Flexi MOU is where the industry cannot provide training on its own. So there can be a tripartite agreement between the UP Skill Development Mission, the industry and the training provider. These are the different modes on which UP Skill Development Mission is working. As I said, after the candidates are registered, the training partners have been selected, then is the training. Before training begins, the candidates are counseled, and approximately batch size for UP is 20 to 25, and the batches are approved first at the district level and then at the state level. And sectors and courses which are approved by the sector skill councils or DGET, any of these courses any training provider can provide, and the training duration is from 1 to 12 months. Till date, ever since the program was conceptualized last year in June-July but operationalized in December 2013, till date around 84,000 candidates have been enrolled and 42,000 have completed training, and for this year we have a target to train around 3 lakh people. These are the various sectors and the courses, and we have 3 cost categories: 30 rupees per hour, 27 rupees per hour and 24 rupees per hour for A, B and C category courses. And different kinds of assessments are there for different kinds of courses. Assessment cost is again paid by our skill development mission directly to the assessing bodies. Then placement is a key criteria as far as UP Skill Development Mission is concerned, and we ensure that the candidates who have been trained get a minimum of 6,000 rupees per month. Once the candidate has been trained and placed, we provide a post-placement support ranging from 2,000 to 6,000 per month for the initial 3 months, and we track the candidate for 1 year. Then there are different incentives for placement. Those training providers who are able to place more than 60%, 1,200 per candidate, then above 75%, there's another ratio. These are broadly the breakup of the year-wise targets. This is the UP STM portal. As I said, everything of the UP STM is integrated with the IT platform, whether it be the candidate management, whether it be the training partner management, the batch management, assessment, placement management, or the financial management system. The first 4 of them have already been completed. The financial management system and the placement management system we are working on, and the placement management we'll be able to activate by the end of this month. These are the screenshots for various links on the portal. This is the candidate registration. The training partner has to register the center, select the courses, the details of the center. The center comes for approval to district unit. Then this is the batch formation, the batch information, different schemes. The biometric attendance is loaded by the training partner. These are the various specifications of the training center, and they should have clean drinking water, separate toilets, electricity backup, biometric attendance, and so on. These are few snaps of the model training center. As I mentioned, Raymond has established tailoring centers for training people, which it will be absorbing in its own unit. These are few of the success stories, few people which have been placed by our skill development mission. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. So I think we are. So we invite.
Thank you very much, sir. So before I start, I request for a memento giving ceremony. I would like to announce that we are 7:15. We are starting with a dinner, and the dinner is at the expo area, just behind this hall. And the World Bank's workshop on open government data has been started in the hall 2. So, okay, so thank you very much to all the panelists and our Honorable Session Chair for such a fruitful discussion. Now I request Honorable Session Chair Dr. C.S. Kumar to kindly present mementos to our eminent speakers. And I request my team to please get the mementos on stage. A memento to Mr. S. Chokalingam, Education Commissioner, Government of Maharashtra. A round of applause for our speakers, please. A memento to Ma'am Ritu Maheshwari, Mission Director, Uttar Pradesh Skill Development Mission. To Mr. Sunil Mehta, DGM ICICI Bank Limited, Mumbai. To Mr. Naufal, Executive Director, IT at School. And to Mr. Sarang Gagan, VP TRS Forms. And a guest from Odisha, Technical Director, NIC. I request to present a memento to him. I request Ma'am Ritu Maheshwari to present a memento to our session chair, please. Thank you very much. And now I request for a group photo of our eminent panelists, please. So after this session, the dinner will be at expo area so that you can have a look at the expo there behind this hall and the various solutions and initiatives presented there in an expo area. So